Right. So, hi everyone. Welcome to my talk tonight, and thank you so much for joining. My name is Yulia, and I am a developer advocate for Vonage, previously known as Nexmo. Yes, we are kind of going through a rebranding, very much work in progress. So you might want to keep that in mind when we get to the code bits. I tend to use those two words interchangeably, so please excuse me for that. But tonight, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about low code, what it is, what's the current situation, why, if at all, you would want to use it, and show you a little bit of NodeRED, which is my preferred low code tool. So a while ago, well, let's start with what is low code and what is no code, because there's a little bit of confusion. Everybody applies slightly different definitions. For me, no code is any tool platform solution where the end user does not see code, does not touch code, does not interact with code in any way. If there are curly brackets, it's low code. So I do prefer the term low code, and that's what we're going to use for the rest of the night. So what's happening in the low code world? About a year ago, I was preparing for my first NodeRED talk, and I started researching low code. Um, I did a couple of Google searches on different terms, tried low code, no code, flow-based programming, which is usually what translates into the low code platforms, as we'll see in a little bit, visual programming. And honestly, I did not come up blank, but there weren't a lot of resources. Now, I repeated the same search this year, and there were millions of results. Only for low code, that would be 4.5-ish million results. And they are no longer the kind of articles that explain what low code is, but the kind that explains your best 5 choices for certain tasks using low code. I also came across this image by Mario Noyoso, um, who tried to put together in different categories all the low code tools he could find. And that is a lot. I will be honest with you, I have not used 80% of those at least, but it shows how far we've come during the past couple of years. So where did all this start? I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who imagine low code like this. That is because starting with the 1960s, there have been a couple of attempts at visual programming, flow-based programming, applying that level of abstraction and taking the code away, hiding it, wrapping it, however they approached it. I'm not sure about you, but these aren't exactly friendly interfaces for me. I mean, yes, you did take the code away. I'm not sure it's less complex. Um, yes, they might have been related to hardware or kids learning to code, but not necessarily friendly solutions for what we were looking for. Nowadays, when I think about low code, I see something more like this. That is Zapier, IFTTT, Airtable, NodeRED. And to be fair, I would even call Postman low code in certain cases. Yes, I might write 50 lines of pre-request script, and that is definitely not low code. But if I am saving that into a collection and the end user only fills in the environment variables, then presses the send button, that is low code in my book. And I do believe that low code is for everyone. It really is for everyone in the sense that everyone can find a low code tool that works for them. Newsflash, developers are people too. That means there must be one of those that works for us. And today I would like to show you one of my favorite tools, which is NodeRED. So let's dive straight into that. NodeRED. I always start with their web page because they clearly define in one sentence what they want to call themselves. It's an event-driven environment and also a Node.js application. So it's a low-code tool built on top of Node.js, which is great because whatever you can do in Node.js, you can also do in NodeRED. If you come to their documentation and under getting started, there are many ways you could run this. Today, we are going to run it locally. So all I need to do for that to happen is to install it with npm, which I have already done. So now all I need to do is go to my terminal and type NodeRED. So NodeRED is a runtime and an editor. So once I start it, it will give me a link to localhost port 1880, and I will open that in a browser to find my editor. And welcome to the NodeRED editor. Normally, this would look a little different, but I zoomed in so that everyone can see it, hopefully. In the middle, you have your canvas. So this is your working area. This is where you will build your flows. And flows are your applications. So if you look up here, I have flow 5, flow 1. I can click through these. These are separate applications that also could interact just the way two different scripts could interact with each other. On the left-hand side, I have my node palette. So these are called nodes. They would be little black box processes. So I would add these to my workspace, dragging and dropping them, and connecting them together with a wire to define how they interact with each other. Now, the interface in between these black box processes is data. That is a JSON. We'll have a look at that in a bit. But it's important to note that everything in between them is data in the form of JSON. I mentioned that NodeRED is an event-driven environment, so that means that these flows need to be set off in a way. So that would be normally a incoming webhook, something happening to start off your flow. In testing environments, I prefer to use the inject node. This is a button on a node, and it starts off my flow with a value that I pick. So by default, it's a timestamp. If I want to set it, I can pick one of many options. So the reason I have in here message flow and global, that is the JSON object that is being sent. Message object is between all the nodes that are wired together. Flow would be anything on the same tab, and global would be anything in my editor, so across flows. I'm going to leave it with message.payload. So that's usually where I will find my most important bit of information attached to the message object. And this time I would like to, let's do a hello world. Hello world with NodeRED. Fun fact, Control tab toggles the sidebar. And I can also use emojis. So once I'm done, I click done. Quick tip with NodeRED, if a button is red, usually you want to press it. That saves. So in the right-hand side, this is your sidebar. There is first the info area. So you can search by different flows and find each of these nodes. And then you have different information about it, like type and the node ID. Now, if at some point you don't know what a certain node does, because there are a lot of nodes in the node palette under different categories, and also you can import any package that you would like to use. Sometimes you don't know what one does, so you click on it and come over to Node Help, and you will find a short documentation-like description. For example, for the inject nodes, it says what it does, what the outputs are. Topic is where so topic comes from the MQTT background of NodeRED. Initially, it was more hardware oriented. That has changed throughout the years, but topic is still in there. I don't tend to use it, mostly never. And payload is usually the information I use. And the next best thing is the debug sidebar. So this is where your debug messages appear. Console, possibly. That would be an analogy. And you have your deploy button. That is your save button. Again, if it's red, press it. Successfully deployed. So now if I start up my flow, it sends the value message.payload hello world. And then the debug node debugs, well, outputs the value of message payload. I can also select the complete message, which in this case will be quite similar. But now we can see the structure of the message object having the message ID and the payload. I could also attach any other properties to that message object. So in here, I have quite a simple setup for NodeRED. That is the default nodes that appear when you first install it. And then I have the ones that I work with. So I'll have the Nexmo package. But if you would like to integrate with a certain service, chances are there is a package for it. So you can go under Manage Palette and install and search for node modules in here. You can also find these on the NodeRED website. So if you come up to flows, there are nodes. So that would be 2,900-ish. Just to name a few: Google Sheets, Twitter, like really anything that I would, as a day-to-day small business, or just for me personally as productivity services, I usually tend to find it. If not, you can always write a node for it. And there are flows. So these would be complete workflows someone has already built. Who knows, maybe what you're trying to do is already out there. So you can just take one of these, import it, and use it. Which brings me to the fact that everything that is in here exports as JSON. So you have your node modules, and then these are separate. I can export this flow. Actually, let's have a look at how that looks. It's a really simple one. I can click export, and that's a JSON. Now, if I make it a little bit nicer, then you can see that first, I have an ID, type, tab. So this would be my flow number 2. there is an option to enable or disable it, which we're not doing right now. And then my nodes. So this is the inject node, and yeah, this isn't really something that you would read to find something in there. But as you can see, this is my whole application. It's a JSON file. So I would also import it in a similar way, and it would appear. So hello world is nice, but let's have a look at something a bit more interesting. Now, I'm going to use our package because that's where I can dig into the code and show you what's happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to pick something simple. SMS API is our simplest API in this context. So that's what I'm going to show you. So how about I add it in between those two? So the inject node is going to set up my flow. That hello world is going to come into my SMS node. Then something is going to happen in here, and the response is being outputted in the debug area again. So I'll quickly set that up. First, credentials. Now, this is another funny thing about NodeRED. I put in API key and a secret. Click add. And I can come over to my configuration nodes and see that of type Nextmo basic, which is what we are using for that node, I have a config node in here, which saves my API key and secret combination. So going forward, I can use it for any other node that requires that type of credentials. So it's no longer using the same all over again. This time I will select one from the drop down, which actually has my API key and secret, hopefully. I'm having lag. So that I don't show it on screen, hopefully. And I'm just quickly setting up we're in the UK, so sender can be anything. Now, the fun part, curly bracket, which means it supports mustache templating. So I can pull in details, well, values dynamically. So remember that inject node was sending me the hello world message. I can refer to that as message.payload. And I had an emoji in there, so I'm gonna check Unicode. Done. That's all saved, deploy, back to debug area, and let's see if I manage to do that. Yep. So got an SMS in there. And then the response object. This is the expected behavior from our SMS API, so all good. Now, why did I show that to you? Because now we're going to look at how you build this node from scratch. So first, quickly back to, that's a good one. Right. So in your NodeRED folder, where you installed NodeRED, you're going to find node modules, and in the node modules, you're going to find the folder named after the package you imported. So I would find all these package names in there. And once you open that in a nodes folder, you're going to find all the code for the nodes that you have in the package. For example, in our package, these are all the files. Now we're not interested in all of those because for all products, we have every file in the same package. So all products come in the same package. But to create that one node, all I need is one HTML file that defines how the node looks and how, once I open it up, the node editor looks, and one JavaScript file which does the work. And then I have a package JSON where I will need to add a NodeRED section to show, well, to reference my nodes. Back on the NodeRED website, there is a quite handy guide on creating nodes. So if you come to create your first node, you'll see a template for both package JSON, npm init. You agree with everything and provide the details that it asks you, and then you open it up and add a NodeRED section. This is an example for lowercase, so that is what appears as a node. In my case, I would put there SMS. And then onto the HTML file. Again, template provided. Let's see how that looks for us. So the HTML file for SMS, yes, I am defining the different values I'll have. So credentials to from text and Unicode, exactly the ones we've seen in there. I also specify the number of inputs and outputs, which in this case is 1 in, 1 out. And then a couple of bits like icon, label, and so forth. Then I have the input, well, so yes, the credentials bit. Then again, to, from, text. And at the end, I have the checkbox for Unicode. It's a quite basic form with the NodeRED template. Now, this is the interesting bit. I mentioned that short documentation-like bit once you click on the help. So this on the right-hand side, you also specify that in the HTML file. So short description, link to documentation, or whatever you would like. And that's your HTML. Onto the functionality. So for this, you also have a template on the NodeRED side. I'm going to quickly show you a code snippet. Because possibly it's easier to understand what I'm actually doing. We have as the case for different languages, Node included. So that really makes it so much easier. So I've got the Node code snippet. I've got the NodeRED template and magic, the two together. So all I'm doing here is I'm getting my data. to, from, and text, I'm rendering through Mustache because it supports Mustache templating. So in case I have something that needs to be rendered through that, instantiating Nextmo, that's my checkbox, and sending the SMS. And this was the getting the rest of my data. I'm loading the response into message.payload and returning the whole message object. And yes, that was how you build a node. So at the end of the day, it is JavaScript wrapped into a visual editor. And I've shown you the code snippets to see, from my point of view, it's just like adapting it to a different programming language, except I already have the node snippets, so it's a little easier. Because template, code snippet, boom, you have NodeRED. And visuals aside, it's kind of like just another framework. So let's see when low code would be a good idea. First, I like it for prototyping. It's fast. I definitely drag and drop, connect them together way faster than I type. And it's also a nice thinking tool. So visually, you can map out the whole infrastructure and see your ideas literally come to life. And once you're done thinking, you already have a working thing. So it's not a mock-up. It is an actual working thing that, if need be, can be deployed and used. So that gives you a little bit of edge over someone who is still trying to decide on the tech stack. Another good one would be for low value, low complexity tasks. So these would be anything that kind of needs to be done, but it's also not really worth your development time. So automating repetitive tasks, integrations like grabbing tweets and putting them into Slack, DevOps, BizOps, generating invoices, sending emails, notifications, and so on. And another one is maintainability. Yes, you can write code, but there are cases where you have to weigh up your options. So if you are an API company, big engineering team, yeah, sure, write your code. That's the way to go. But if you're a small team, maybe you're the only person understanding the code you're writing. That's not exactly handover friendly or empathetic of you. And being professional means that you can write something that outlasts you. And sometimes that may not be the most elegant way of solving a problem, but it might just be the best option you have. I have had someone tell me that they've built the whole business operations bit on Zapier because given the team that they had available, it didn't really matter that they had one developer on board. The rest of the team could not interact with whatever solution they would have come up with. So Zapier was the way to go. If you're not familiar with the tool, that's even more limited and abstract than NodeRED. Also more non-technical, user-friendly. And last but not least, you are not a professional developer 24/7. So at a certain time, you might find yourself in one of these roles. You might be building something over the weekend with IoT, or diving into a hobby, teaching the kids to write code. So as long as the opportunity presents itself, I think low code is something to consider. It's not always a you should do that or you should not do that. Just keep your options open. And that being said, there are cases where low code probably is not the answer. So it's cool. And there are so many things you could do with it. But it is definitely not a way to save finances on engineering resources. So low code is not here to replace developers. It's here to alleviate us. So you think of it as an aid so that we can focus on the more important things, on the main logic, and not get bogged down with the day-to-day repetitive tasks. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that a low-code solution is usually a platform. Now, you will have to be aware of the risks that come with that, and it's your decision to see whether you're happy with that or not. I don't mind building a Twitter to Slack integration on top of a platform, but if it's your main revenue generating product, then there are a couple of decisions that need to be made. And at the end of the day, I believe that it comes down to the efficiency of writing code. There is absolutely no shame in taking the easy way out and focusing on what matters. I always believe in picking the right tool for the right job to solve the right problem. And who knows, that might just be low code every now and then. I'll be wrapping up in a minute. So if you have any questions, you might want to get started on those now. In case you are interested in more low code, I'm running a Twitch stream every other week on Wednesday, 3 p.m. UK time. That would be next week, and then every second week going on. And I'll leave the resources up in case you would like to take a screenshot or something. So thank you.